All right, my friends, welcome back to another V-Rising video. This is going to be a weapon breakdown for the throwing daggers. Now, the throwing daggers are one of the most complicated weapons in the game for just by themselves, especially compared to the ones that were added in the most recent patch, but they also happen to be my favorite weapon. Overall, these things are crazy, and what's interesting about them is you can actually play them as almost like a main weapon, or like a whether it's a single weapon or a weapon with only just a few complementary other weapons. I have a bunch here, but I'm going to explain why I have a bunch here. Even just one or two additional weapons you can still do very well with the daggers. So let's go ahead and get started on these, what makes them so good. So first and foremost, every single instance of damage from a single dagger does 40% physical damage, whether that's the four daggers you throw from your primary, whether it is each of the daggers that you land with this, or whether it's the daggers as they come back to you. Probably just realized what happened there with the left click, Q and E. But let's go ahead and go over this. Let's start with the primary attack. So first things first, primary attack has a range a little bit more than the pistols. So we're here with the pistols, not hitting, but here we hit the daggers. So overall, that's really nice. That's pretty solid range. Obviously, it's going to be less than like a crossbow or a longbow, but it is still very good poke range. You probably notice here, though, that you kind of stop and slow down to throw them, which obviously leaves you a little bit open. So this is where the cancel action keybind that you have becomes very, very important. So the thing about throwing daggers is obviously we're winding up or taking a really long time to throw all these. But when you're playing these, it can also be really potent to just cancel your throw before you throw it, or stop in the middle of the stream here to only throw one or two. Now, also to go over how that works is this dagger stacks right here, you gain one every second after you throw them. The minimum is one, and then it starts charging up from there. Every second you gain another one. So it takes about 3 seconds to get a full stack of 4. Attack speed and nothing else that I know of even affects this, so just keep that in mind. And they come out really, really, really fast. So that's where kind of like staggering how many you're throwing at once is really good if you're playing this as like a poke, kind of like a poke tool here, right? Just do here and there, and then whenever you find those openings, try to throw 4 at once. Okay, and once they're on the ground, they last for about 8 seconds. That's for any of the daggers for the left click of the Q. Speaking of the Q, we're going to go ahead and get into the Q. This is a very, very strong ability. You jump into the air and throw 4 daggers down. That's an AoE. Each of those hits are AoEs, which means they hit through counters and defensive abilities. The jump in the air is also an iframe. Like that. You jump backwards a little bit. That's an iframe. And like I said, that right there is an AoE. And it's pretty consistent to hit 2 or 3 of these at once. Right there, that was probably about 2 of them. Maybe 3. That was 2 of them there. And so overall, it's pretty consistent to hit multiple at once, at least 2, 3. Sometimes you get lucky on them, it's 4, because that's a very interesting spread like that. Sometimes you get lucky, or if they're like up against a wall, you can kind of throw them up against the wall and they'll all hit in a very small, tighter spread. Like that, you can hit all 4 at once. And finally, we have the E, which whenever you activate this, you'll see this little AoE around me. That AoE applies a fading snare, which means it reduces their movement speed to 0, and then they will slowly increase back to 100% over time. And then it will also recall every dagger that you have on the ground will get recalled to you. Now keep in mind, those daggers, if you throw them into a wall with your left click, they'll bounce off the wall, or into an enemy, they'll bounce onto the ground. But if you miss, nothing happens. They don't go anywhere. Okay, so the E, obviously you can imagine with that E and the Q and the left click, all of this together, if you did like a left click Q and E, that's a lot of damage. There's 160% physical, 160% physical if you hit all of them. And then if every dagger comes back, that's another 320% physical if you hit every single thing. Obviously, it's kind of like unrealistic to do that, but you can understand like 640% physical damage on 3 things, just a left click, a Q, and an E. The potential is 640% is so much higher than any other weapon combination. It's kind of ridiculous how much damage total you can do with just a quick throw, Q, and E. Altogether, the damage you can get from that is really, really high. So what makes these things so good, however, is so even if you don't have a legendary variant, I would suggest if you're going to go for like a purple on these, if you don't have the artifact weapon, I would go for Storm Infused and Static. Static because there's just so many daggers coming off like this. If you get Static on top of them, all those static procs trigger as well. Okay, and so one thing about the E. Okay, so let's go back to the E real quick. One thing about the E is the amount of damage potential on this E is so dangerous that you're threatening so much damage that even if you don't get the combo and get a bajillion daggers to hit at once, the other player is going to be very, very nervous and spacing and trying to position and get away. And sometimes they'll even dash away or whatever, or they'll, you can do this and bait whatever, and then you can kind of like bait something out with another ability, and they'll panic and they'll use a weapon skill, or sorry, a counter or something to avoid it. And then you can recall like that. Or even just the damage, the potential recall damage is so scary that a lot of times you have them on the back foot, just trying to position and out-position your daggers, and they're worried about taking all that damage because it really is insane damage. I mean, as you can see, look how much damage this is. We're not even hitting all of them. He's still taking, I mean, over 250 damage just from all of that. I mean, altogether, that was like 500 damage. So, okay. And now let's go to what makes these things truly ridiculous, which is the artifact variant. So already we're doing, you can see the damage we're doing there. But the artifact variant is by far the strongest artifact weapon in the entire game. Nothing comes close, in my opinion. There's nothing even comes remotely close to how much damage these things can do. And let's go over why. So you see at the top here, it says the Q inflicts weaken and deals 3% bonus damage for each stack of Phantasm. This is a very unique thing that I find really, really cool. And so that means with the new spell mastery system, our Phantasm stack max is 12. So altogether, that's 36% total. That's your max possible bonus damage on the Q, 36% bonus damage per dagger on your Q if you have max Phantasm stacks. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like here. So I do this. So now I'm at 9, and let's go ahead and use our counter to get that last 12. And now our damage looks like this. That's 184 with no crits. I know that's like, well, it's not even that much. And let's go ahead and do this. And there's 336 damage with just the Q. If you hit all 4 and you build for it, I have done over 400 damage with just the Q. It's stupidly powerful, very, very, very strong. So, to go back to the E really quick and what makes this so good, let's look at the artifact variant of the E. So whenever you recall, normally on the E, whenever you recall the daggers, it will give you a stack of your auto attack, and it will cool down your Q for every dagger that you pull. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'm gonna do this, 10 seconds, we press E, now we're at 4 seconds, right? Very, very, that's a ton of cooldown altogether. All of a sudden, we can just throw another weapon skill out. And it's back down again. And so, like I said, it also does it for the stacked daggers here. So if we go like this, you can go like 1, 2, 3, 4, recall, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So that's a kind of a cool thing there. And with the artifact variant, every one of those returning daggers also has a 33% chance to give you a stack of Phantasm. So this thing has self-generating Phantasm stacks. Very, very, very cool. Very strong. So let's go ahead and go over. So the peak damage on these things is utterly insane, and this is by far the best in slot weapon for these things. I mean, nothing comes close to how strong this is. And like I said, this is, in my opinion, the strongest artifact weapon in the entire game. I actually don't even think anything comes close to how good these things are individually. Like, obviously, some things are really good, like Red Twins do a ton of damage if you hit them with an E. But overall, this thing just is insane. I mean, a giant thing, 300 something damage on that Q, and it's an AoE. Absurd. Okay, so let's go ahead and go down. So like I said, this is you can run this as almost like a single weapon. So let's go over the blood suggestions. So there's a couple things on bloods you could run. I would recommend Warrior as your primary, first and foremost. Warrior is just really strong with these because you want to have you want to have more cooldowns. So weapon charge rate or weapon charge gain is really important. I also have this passive on for overpower to give me more charges per Q. I'm at 21 per Q right there, or per weapon skill. There's another weapon skill. I'm at 42 because the more of those you have, the more Qs you get, right? So that's right away, that's what I would suggest, doing something with Warrior. Second thing you can run something like with Rogue as your secondary with the tier 3 passive, which gives you like a guaranteed crit whenever you dash. That's really good. You can also run it with move speed if you absolutely if you feel like you need move speed. I would recommend as another stat on this, if you don't want to have it just glass cannon physical, to remove maybe physical crit power or something and put on movement speed. Just something to give you a little bit more move speed, because you will want to be able to be a little bit mobile with these weapons, be able to keep them spaced really well. Other bloods that work, Warrior Corrupted is pretty ridiculous. I mean, Corrupted with anything is pretty wild, but Warrior Corrupted gives you like 30 something stacks. Let's do that real quick. Go ahead and do this real quick. It gives you like, let's go ahead and do this there. So that gave me a total of, let's see how much this gives me here real quick. 36 weapon charges for a single weapon ability. So what happens with that, why it's so good there, is that if you get to the point where you're at like this much here, 108, you're at, there goes the free cast. You go like this. There's 80. We'll do one more. And this is what gets so crazy whenever you use it with something like Mistrance. There are 116. Mistrance has the ability to reset your weapon skills or your Q weapon skill cooldown. So you can do something like this. And so then we have another one, and we're charged again. And we're doing more weapons. You can see how many weapon skills we are pumping out here. Stat suggestions. Like I said, physical damage really good. Weapon skill power is probably a must here. Bonus physical power really strong. Physical crit power, if you're running crit damage, is really good. And then otherwise, I would do something like movement speed. Attack speed is not really something you want to look at with these. It just is not that great. So the reason why, it does give you some kinds of bonuses if you run some attack speed here. Let me do this real quick. There, 139. So what happens with this, what this does is it makes it so your windup is a lot faster, so you can throw your daggers. You stop moving for less time and you start moving much faster. So that can help a little bit, but the thing about this, like, that's kind of a bait in my opinion. I really probably wouldn't be too concerned about that. And the reason why is because you can just cancel action. If you're in a situation where you can't get the 4 daggers off, you're gonna get punished, just cancel action and keep moving, right? So like, you're doing this, oh, never mind. Or like, oh, wait, that's a bad spot. Okay, I'm just gonna cancel, keep running. Oh, never mind, just keep running. So to me, it's not really worth investing heavily into attack speed for that reason. All right, so, and spell suggestion. This is the most important part here. So for spells, my go-to build with these, there's a few spells that work really well with these, but with the legendary specifically, and really just anything, Phantasm stacks are going to be really good because, like I said, you want to have a way to generate a lot of Phantasm stacks really, really quickly. And these two, Veil of Illusion, that gives you, has the jewel effect that gives you 5 stacks of Phantasm. Mistrance, that gives you 5 stacks of Phantasm, and then a Illusion Coating, which gives you 4 stacks, gives you a way to immediately get full Phantasm stacks that quickly, which right away we can just throw a big Q and do a bunch of damage, get the recall, whatever. And that recall a lot of times will refresh those Phantasm stacks for us. So we can just press this and we may not have to do it all that much again. You can see it just refreshed there. So then on top of that, Lightning Curtain, to me, Lightning Curtain currently is just insanely powerful. It's probably overpowered, specifically with the Fading Snare Jewel is just really, really strong, because if somebody's going away, you can cast this on top of them and they can't get out of it. And on top of that, it blocks their projectiles for you, and it lets you hit them with all those projectiles while they have static for even more damage. So this right here is good for like approaching, kind of poking through that, or if you're trying to get away, you can do this, or you can even dash through it, get a movement speed boost like that, to keep yourself a lot more mobile. Other spells that work really well. So Bloodright is really good with it. Obviously you're sacrificing, or I guess you could toss it on as a secondary if you wanted to, run double counter, but if you don't, Bloodright sacrifices the Mistrance resets, and it's kind of a rough thing to do. However, it is still really good being able to do something like this and counter, and try to just use this as like a way to knock people away and get out. You know, it's not too bad in that regard. So, but otherwise, I would probably go for Mistrance. Blood Rage also really good as a way to just give yourself a little bit more movement speed. And if you have the physical power jewel, on this. That gives you bonus physical power. That's always good on physical builds, right? So yeah, this is definitely usable, but overall for me it would be Mistrance instead. I actually would put Power Surge over Blood Rage in that regard, because you're doing that physical single target damage with the ignite ticks, and you can just do some seriously crazy damage. I guess you could run Casberry if you wanted to. Probably wouldn't recommend it. I mean, it wouldn't be terrible in a way. So if somebody's trying to approach you and they do this and you recast it, they get stunned and then you hit them with the Q, right? That is something you could consider. You could even use something like Aftershock as a secondary, something like this, where you are doing this, and then you have the Aftershock Jewel with the Fading Snare, so you can kind of catch them in that Fading Snare. And while they're in that Fading Snare, you can hit them with the Q for big damage. Curse with the Knockback Jewel and Phantomagus with Knockback Jewel. Both of these have jewels on them that you can use to knock people back. Both those are really good. So like, for instance, if this thing had a Knockback Jewel on it, you could pop it on somebody, it would knock them away. Same thing with Curse. Cold Snap, not too bad. I mean, kind of works somewhat similar to Bloodright, except instead it would freeze them if they're close enough to you. Frost Barrier, also, you know, pretty good, especially if you have like the recast that knocks them away and freezes. Like that, you can push them back and get them away from you. Again, all the daggers is all about creating space. And then here, I probably wouldn't go Discharge because they're pulling them to you. Polarity Shift is also the... I can't believe I forgot to mention Polarity Shift. Polarity Shift is also on top of like Lightning Curtain. It's also one of the best you could possibly have. Reason being, if you do this, right, you're doing this, and let's say you have the daggers here, you can just quickly pull them through, right? So I just did that completely wrong here. That's okay. Let's say you do this. So you have daggers. Let's say you have daggers right behind you, right? And you have something like this. You can Polarity Shift them and then Dagger E them or whatever to pull all the daggers through them that way. So definitely useful to also keep them away from you, as if they finally get to you, you can kind of TP away, or you can do this to create space. Maybe there's something over here, you can use that to pull that guy to you, that kind of thing. So, all right, so I realized after the fact that I did not go over my ultimate, so really quickly, let's go over my ultimate choice. So the options that you have here, you could probably go Crimson Beam. It's just really strong right now in general. Even if you're not really all that much magic power, it still does insane damage. But I would probably reserve this more for like a team build. Heart Strike is really solid all around, high mobility, good healing, and solid damage. Merc Charge probably wouldn't go this unless you're on a team. I would probably... Wisp Dance is absolutely an option. One way I like to use Wisp Dance is whenever it's like an anti-engage tool, or to punish them whenever they finally get close. So if I'm sitting here kiting and they finally maybe Greatsword Q or they Veil attack onto me or something, I can pop Wisp Dance right here, which pierces counters, and they just take all this damage. And you can see I'm threatening a pretty solid amount of damage just through the Wisp Dance and the recasts alone. And a lot of times you'll see them panic once they do that, and maybe they try to pistol you out of the way, or they slash or Q or something, try to get away from you. And obviously we're building Phantasm stacks, so overall this one's a pretty good one. Wisp Dance is a pretty good one. Arctic Leap and Ice Block, both these are really good. Ice Block is really solid right now as a way to disincentivize people from getting off. It's kind of like Wisp Dance, but like more, it's safer, where somebody actually gets close to you, you just pop this, and then they kind of have no choice but to kind of back off unless they have combo stuff. Arctic Leap is really good for moving on top of things for team fights. But overall, my personal preference is Raging Tempest, because Raging Tempest has it does a really good job at creating distance, as well as threatening a huge amount of damage in like 1v1s. Even 2v2s is not that bad. So for instance, if this guy finally manages to get close to me, I can pop this on him, and if he lets the whole thing channel, that's 336 damage. It's huge. And if he doesn't, what happens? Let's say I do on this guy, he dashes away. Well, I can just dash like this, and just like that, I've created a bunch of space, and all the effort he put in to try to get close to me is gone. And finally, let's go ahead and go over weapons. So weapons with this, I would suggest at the very least, if you're going to run only one more weapon, I would run pistols, because you'll have an iframe on both the Q and the E. They actually work really well in that regard. And then other than that, I would recommend Reaper. Reaper's super useful with these. If they happen to get close to you, let's say you're fighting, you're trying your best to stay away, but they somehow have closed the gap, you can just quickly swap to Reaper and knock them away and just create that space to make it be very annoying. Axes also work really well for the E. I would say between all of these four, I would say the most important one right away is pistols. Second most important is Reaper. And then third is probably, third most important is probably spear or axes here. Spear's really good for quick veil attacks. That's always going to be good. But axes are also nice because if you're looking for this E too much and you just can't seem to find it, it's nice to have like a quick axe. And then you can throw the daggers on top of them that way. But it's absolutely not required. I would say this is probably the least important one of the bunch overall. So yeah, I would say it'd be this right here, this build. If you're only comfortable with 4 weapons, this is a really, really strong 4-weapon build. For daggers, where you're primarily sticking on those daggers, trying to keep those phantasm stacks up. And then if they get close, you can just quickly hew them away and then keep going through throwing more daggers. Look for those E recalls if you can. If you need to do a quick veil attack, swap the spear, do that real quick. And then pistols, if they're coming in close, you need to get them off of you, or you need to dodge something, again, Reaper for that. So overall, really, really fun weapon. And these things are by far my favorite weapon in the entire game right now. They're super, super strong. They're hard to use, but whenever you get them working, they're so powerful. I mean, the absolute insane amounts of damage from this is crazy. Like, if you get everything going on this, if you get tons of daggers down, even just getting a few daggers on the recall, right? Like this. I mean, look at that damage. That's so much damage here. So one left click, right? We'll do one left click, static, dash, and then E. I mean, look at that. Altogether, that's probably about 700 damage or so. Just insane amounts of damage. But anyway, that's going to be it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this full-on breakdown. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. But for now, that's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next one.